So hello to everyone and welcome to today's IAPC&M CPD Building Masterclass. My name is Julie Kennedy. I've got a nasty cold and I'm in the Netherlands, so hopefully I won't be spluttering too much. We have a great topic for us today. So 9 steps to embracing emotional fitness as a coach, delivered by the wonderful Bee Flanagan, accredited master coach, youth coach, trainer, motivational speaker, presenter, and MC. And if I understood well, TEDx speaker as well. So well done on that.
Thank you.
Right, so first, some housekeeping. Our call today will be a maximum of 1 hour, including 15 minutes Q&A. The session is recorded, so please mute yourself, but if possible, keep your video on because it's much nicer for the speaker to see that they're not just talking to themselves. And please use the chat box for questions and suggestions. However, oops, I'm going to come back in here and mute whoever's not on mute. Can you all mute yourselves? Okay, right. I shall come back in here and mute first. Oh, it's Ian. Okay, mute. Voila. Sorry. I think everybody is muted. Oh, again. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, right. Who? I'm not finding it. I'm not finding who's not muted. Oh, here. Voila.
Hi, Ian.
Right, I think we have them. Sorry. Hello, Ian. We were struggling with a few unmuted people, but lovely to have the videos on. So welcome, everyone. As I've just said, I've just introduced Bee, if you could hear me above the noise. And we shall get started once I'm sure that you do have your CPD pads ready and your pens ready to take copious notes so that we can, well done, Sharon, well done. So we can put this into action. Right, now what we don't usually do is I'm going to actually try and pull up Bee's presentation.
Thanks, Julie.
If hopefully this is going to work. Share screen. And we have this one. Okay, are you seeing what you should be seeing?
Yes, and you might just pop it onto slideshow, please.
Slideshow, okay. Indeed. Lots of things open up here at the top. My cursor's disappeared. Yeah, I'm just trying to get a hold of my cursor. Oh, here he is. There we are. Slideshow. From now? From current slide?
From the beginning? Yeah, from current slide. Okay. Perfect.
Go on then. And you just make sure that I know when to keep going then.
So if you press enable editing, it will allow you there. I think we need to press that first, Julie, please.
There we are.
Yeah. There we go. And then into slideshow, please. And thank you.
Voila.
Thank you, because IT is not necessarily my strong point. But there we go. So I can't see anybody else at the moment, but I hope you can see me and hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Julie, and welcome to everybody for today's masterclass. It's a privilege to be part of the IAPC&M and to be able to deliver a masterclass on something that I'm really passionate about for not just myself personally, but obviously my clients. And it's really to share my insight as a coach to help everybody to be ready for their clients. So today we're going to look at 9 steps to embracing emotional fitness as a coach. So as we look at the next slide, it's just about taking a moment out as we start and everybody to check in with how you're feeling right now. And if you are writing this in your CPD and you write down, I am feeling, just write down how you're feeling at the moment. You could be feeling buzzed and energized. You might be feeling a little bit tired. Maybe you're rushed a bit to get here because you're doing something else beforehand. But just to tune in with that, because when we talk about emotional fitness, that really is about how we feel. And when you make a note of that, we'll come back to it. Lovely, Ian, is feeling content. Yeah, what's the grey blocks? I see that myself. I thought it was just on my screen. It may disappear, so hopefully we'll move along and see what happens. So just to give you a little bit more insight to myself, this is a little overview. Yes, Julie, I can see those black, it's a thumbnail.
Yeah, the problem is now, since I have your presentation on my screen, I'm not actually seeing anything else. I can see the people, but I don't see any grey blocks.
Okay.
Where are you seeing those?
Mel is saying you can minimize it. Mel, do you mean the presentation? Because we can do that. Absolutely.
No, I think it's the window where Julie can see you and other participants.
Right.
Okay.
Should I shut that down then?
If you go to the top left, there's a little minimize.
Yes.
Oh, thank
Is this
you, Mel.
better? Better?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Super. Thank you for that. So yeah, just a little bit of, for some of you, it's great to see some familiar faces here today, but for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Bee Flanagan and I am an accredited master coach. I'm also, I'm wondering if Julie can hear me still, and
Yes.
if she's able to just press along with the presentation there. Now, I don't need it necessarily, but yeah, that's it there, Julie. Just a little bit about Bee. So you can go through the whole screen and leave it on the full screen if you wish, Julie. Thank you. So as an accredited master coach, I'm accredited with the IAPC&M maybe 10, 12, 14 years. Emotional fitness coach, which is what we're going to talk about today. A lot of how that emotional fitness works in coaching. As a teen coach, I developed a program called PALS, and some of you may be familiar with that. PALS stands for Positive Assertive Life Skills. So I work with teenagers and young adults around the areas of building resilience, helping them with their self-confidence, and also as well, just how to feel more positive and deal with the day-to-day challenges that we have. You might see the little image there for TEDx speaker. I was very happy to get the opportunity in July, the 1st of July last year, to deliver my very first TEDx talk. You can actually get that on YouTube. Just Google Bee Flanagan and it will come up. As Peace Commissioner, that's another kind of a voluntary role that I have, but it comes in handy when I work in education, the education sector, because teachers and principals often need documents signed by a Peace Commissioner. So it sits in with the business I do. A motivational speaker, and I think as well, Julie, yes, thank you. Motivational speaker, numerologist. I don't know if anybody knows about numerology, but we can talk about that another time if you wish. A trainer. I have my own podcast, TLC with B, which stands for Talking, Leaving Certain Other Life Stuff. So for me, it fits in with the PALS program and working with teenagers. And recently I had the joy of working in classrooms with 10, 11 and 12-year-olds. And one of them said to me, "We wish you could be here every day, Bee, or we wish you could be here all the time." I said, "I know, I would love that as well, but that's not possible." But then I remembered my podcast and I said, "Well, you can hear me every day if you want to listen to my podcast." And it was unusual because it's targeted at teenagers and young adults, but actually they gave me positive feedback the following week and said that they'd been listening to the podcast. So that way, I suppose it's an opportunity to share more information with people. And then the fun side of my business, Julie was saying about being MC as well for her event this week. I love that part of my business. So MC, presenter, whether it's fashion shows, talent shows, award ceremonies, and all of that. So thank you. That's just a little bit more about me. So when we look at emotional fitness and we're talking about, you know, what the understanding is of emotional fitness, does anybody want to share with me, even in the comments, or if you feel like speaking out, absolutely you can, what your understanding is of emotional fitness and how, you know, we're going to talk about embracing that today.
Should I raise my hand?
Yes, thanks, Sharon. Hi.
No worries. Hi. Emotional fitness for me means that we have that level of emotional self-awareness, and we're able to respond in a way that comes from our experience of our bodies and our minds, and how we process and perceive different experiences, that we're not reactive in the moment, but that we actually take a thought and respond to our ability.
Excellent. And you're right, you know, when you take the word responsibility, it's like your ability to respond, and it's nice to be able to take that breath and know that actually I can respond in a way that works for me, as opposed to not being triggered by different ways that you could respond in the past. But again, it's practice, isn't it? I'm just having a look here at some of the chat that come in, just so I can see. Yes, there's somebody, Cherie, you're right, not being easily triggered by client stories. And Una has said, tapping into our own emotions, respecting them, looking after our emotional well-being, and building boundaries to support it. Absolutely, that's brilliant. And that's exactly it. If we practice, you know, and a lot of coaching to me is about just being 1 or 2 steps ahead of my clients. You know, we're still growing, evolving, moving and expanding, but our clients are going to be on their journey of growth as well. And I just always feel I'm 1 or 2 steps ahead. So the more I practice my emotional fitness and well-being, the more well and fit and empowered I am to help my clients. So excellent. Thank you for that. So we'll just continue to move on. Any other questions there? Okay, so when we look at being emotionally fit, I've just put up a couple of questions there about our understanding of physical fitness. You know, what is physical fitness? What do we do to stay physically fit? And most of you probably know things that you do. Maybe you go for a walk, maybe you dance. I like to do a bit of salsa, that keeps me physically fit. Different things that we need to do consistently. And I think that's the most important thing to remember here. To grow our physical fitness, we've got to show up consistently. So whether it's 4 15-minute walks a week, regular exercise class, anything strength and conditioning, whatever it might be that we do physically to stay fit, we can only grow that by repetition, consistency, and showing up for ourselves on a physical level all the time. So when we look at emotional fitness, how do we stay emotionally fit is very similar. We've got to show up for ourselves regularly. We've got to have consistency, habits that we build in every day that we do, like our physical fitness. So what do we do every day that helps us stay emotionally fit? Again, it's repetition, it's consistency, those daily habits that we do physically. Then how do we match that emotionally? And often it's like when we start this journey, and it's the same with coaching, whether it's ourselves as a client or a coach and our own clients, people want the quick fix sometimes. They want, you know, I'm going to go to a coach is going to tell me exactly what to do and then I'll be fine. But actually, it's the longevity of this process. It's the showing up consistently that we can then build the growth, the stamina, the resilience, the strength, physically, but also emotionally. And if somebody said to me today, Bee, you're going to run a marathon on Saturday. Now, nobody might know me personally, and you might say, well, okay, you could do that marathon on Saturday. But I'll tell you now, I would not be able for that marathon on Saturday. I would need to set up a proper training program. And maybe this time next year can run the marathon. And the same thing happens with our emotional fitness. We've got to say, sometimes we wait till there's a crisis in our lives. There's something big that we say, I can't handle this. I've hit this possible breakdown. I always like to see it as a breakthrough, but we could hit this possible breakdown, but we may not have the emotional strength and skills and resilience to deal with this crisis. So we're not saying, let's wait till we have a crisis to be emotionally fit. It's like every day is going to bring a challenge. Absolutely. There's no day that I still don't face some sort of a challenge, but it's because of the practice of that emotional fitness program that I have put in for myself that I'm able to deal with the challenges. So it's like having the reserve, you know, when we talk about resilience is a muscle really. And it's the more we have to experience challenges, the stronger that resilient muscle gets. So it's not about saying, let's not have any difficulties. It's like, how do we manage the difficulties? Back to what Sharon was saying, how we respond, you know, that responsibility of how we respond to situations. Any questions on that? Are we okay? Yeah, perfect. We can keep moving forward then. Thank you. So when we look at the power of our thoughts, and this is the foundation of how we build the emotional resilience and the emotional fitness, our thoughts determine our reality. And I'm not sure if that's something anybody has connected with already, but we have about 50 or 60,000 thoughts in our head at any one time. And a lot of the time, we're dealing with the same small percentage of thoughts. They might feel differently, but they're creating the same reality. You know, and if it's a negative thought pattern, we're going to create a negative experience or feeling, and then we're going to have a negative response to that. But the same happens with a positive. So when we make the connection between what we think about and what we bring about in our reality and in our day-to-day life, now we know that we have an opportunity by tuning into our thoughts to create the very life that we want. And as you move on, sorry, thank you, Julie, the next slide will look at the kind of very ethos of what the PALS program is for me. And I work with teenagers, young adults, my clients, whether they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or clients in their 70s as well, with this PALS pyramid. So when you see the PALS pyramid, we're looking at how we can actually make that connection between what we think about and what we bring about. So even taking a note of the pyramid, basically drawing a triangle on your page. On the top of the pyramid, we have thoughts, and that'll be on the next slide, Julie. Thank you. We have thoughts, and to the left of it, thank you, Julie, we have feelings, and then to the right of it, we have actions. So basically, how this works is every thought that we have creates a feeling, and every feeling creates an action. However, which comes first, the thought or the feeling? Because when I asked you all at the beginning of our session, how are you feeling right now? You're able to tune in, I feel, with how we feel before we realize our thoughts are creating that. So every thought that we have creates a feeling, and every feeling creates an action. We've 60, 50, 60, 70,000 thoughts at any one time. Can you imagine the amount of feelings that are connected to that amount of thoughts? Even if we're only using a very small percentage of the thoughts or being aware of them. And sometimes we're not even aware. We're going on an automatic pilot. You know, you make yourself a cup of tea in the morning, or you drive your car, you do it very, well, if you're like me, you'll do it very automatic without thinking, unless you decide, I want to be very mindful about this, and I want to think about everything that I'm doing. So your thoughts create the feelings, and your feelings create the actions. We tune into how we feel, but actually the thoughts have created that feeling. So if you look back on what you wrote down and how you were feeling, I don't know if anybody, we had a couple of people sharing there. Ian said he felt content. What a lovely feeling to have, Ian. How you feel determines the actions that you take. So every positive feeling that we have gives us what we call a proactive. So coaching is very proactive. It's like, what do we want to do now so that we see an achievement or a success or reaching a goal next week or the week after? And it can be sometimes, for me as a coach, it can be contradictory. You know, we're looking ahead. What's on your 1-year plan, your 5-year plan, your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan. But actually, how are you feeling in this moment? Because that determines where we go with that plan. So if you tune into how you're feeling, now we can think about those thoughts have created it. So if you're feeling, I'm going to use your example, Ian, if you're feeling content, your thoughts were probably, I feel really relaxed today. I'm happy out. I've achieved so much and I'm ready to do this now and I'm feeling prepared. Those thoughts can create the feelings. So when you meet somebody and you say to them how you're feeling, you almost could nearly connect with how they're thinking because they've told you how you feel. The beauty about understanding this process is, if I don't feel the way I want to feel, what can I do to change that? And that's where we have 3 very powerful questions. Tuning in to how you feel determines how you act or respond or react. So a negative thought will create a negative feeling. That negative feeling will create a negative or reactive response. That may not trigger a positive thought, and it might trigger more of those negative thoughts, which continue to trigger more negative feelings. And when I do this in schools with young students and young adults, they say, Bee, that should be a circle. I said, I know, but PALS pyramid was the better alliteration, so I had to stick with that. So we have a bit of fun when I kind of get into the nitty-gritty with it. But what I always ask them is, how would they like to feel? And that's what I want you to think about now. If you could, and the beauty is you can, if you could choose how you would like to feel, what would you choose? How would you like to feel? So the 3 powerful questions are, how do I feel right now? How would I like to feel right now? And what do I need right now? And they can be asked several times a day, maybe several times an hour if we're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, worried, or stressed. But if we're feeling calm, maybe the next feeling after that is, I'd like to feel energized. So when somebody is feeling stressed, it's not saying, I would like to feel not stressed. It's like, what's the opposite to that? We've got to keep it in the positive. So I would like to feel calm, or I would like to feel, the last question, thanks, Cynthia. So the 3 questions are, how do I feel right now? How would I like to feel right now? And what do I need right now? Because often, it's a little bit like I was saying, we're often in the future worrying about what could happen or what might happen or what needs to happen. And we get into the bigger overwhelm. But if you realize and you hear with those questions, we're saying now, how do I feel right now? How would I like to feel right now? And what do I need right now? And right now, I might need a cup of tea. And that's it. Take a cup of tea and I feel okay. Or I might need to switch off my phone. Or I might need to make that phone call that I've been avoiding to do. Or I might need to do a time management plan so I don't feel so overwhelmed. So it's breaking down the big need into the smaller needs. And that's why you can ask yourself these questions several times a day, because our needs change throughout the day. And this is very much part of, if you're doing a physical exercise and you go to the gym and you use the treadmill, let's say that these questions are like the treadmill for your emotional fitness. If I ask these over and over again, I'm going to get more in tune, more practice, more resilient, more strong, have that strength internally. So I'm building the emotional fitness. Does that make sense? And the place where we press pause is between the thoughts and the feelings. And that's why we ask those questions, because then a positive thought generates a positive feeling, and a positive feeling generates positive action. So one of my favorites, again, when I'm working with young people, but with adults as well, and please feel free to share this with whoever you wish or use it for yourself. One of my favorite feelings to choose is amazing. And it covers a lot. But if I have to say, I feel amazing, I've got to think thoughts that are amazing. And one of the very simple affirmations for me is, I am amazing. And I just use that. And when I say I am amazing, the physiology in the body begins to tune into what you're thinking, and it creates feelings that are amazing. When I feel amazing, I'll take proactive, positive actions that will create, I want to do amazing things. And that amazing thing might be just to get up out of bed and feel happy. So it's not huge, but it's small incremental steps that we do. So when we choose how we would like to feel, you just match it with the affirmation I am. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Any questions before, or we can move on? I haven't seen in the chat. I think we're okay, are we? Thank you. So we'll just go on to the two most powerful words. I probably gave it away there. So they are I am. And when we use these words, they create the very reality that we experience. Everything we say after these 2 words are so powerful to create the reality. So I am tired, I am stressed, I am anxious. We'll create more of that. Now, it's very important to realize we're not saying you don't feel those things, but when we say I am, we're just compounding it. If we'd like to change it, that's where the 3 questions come in. We start saying different things after I am. So whatever we want to feel, if we add it after I am, it will become the reality. It will take a bit of practice. It's not going to happen instantly, but then we couldn't run a marathon instantly when we decide to do it. So we've got to practice this consistently. So there's a couple of examples there of the I am. So my favorite one, as I said, I am amazing. we can have several different things that we just decide to choose on, and there's no limit. We can say, I am positive, I am enough, I am empowered, I am strong, and that can be physically or emotionally. One of my favorite one is, I'm really good at what I do. And that doesn't matter what you're doing then. You could be making a cup of tea, you could be promoting your business, you could be supporting your clients, you could be creating a new workshop, you could be writing a book, or a course, a workshop that you want to do. I am really good at what I do. All of these simple affirmations are very, very powerful when we have repetition and when we tune into deciding that we take ownership of how we'd like to feel. And one of the important things to remember is, often people think other people are responsible for how we feel. And a lot of the time people can say, well, you made me feel this way, or they make me feel this way. And I understand why that can happen. However, nobody is in charge of how you feel except yourself. So when you choose to say, okay, I feel really upset by this, but I've got to take ownership of that feeling, and how would I like to feel instead? It doesn't mean we'll be a pushover because we're not reacting in a way that maybe in the past we were triggered. It just means we're taking ownership for that. I just saw a question coming up there. Let me just see. Una, this self-awareness is powerful. I needed paracetamol and coffee before the session started, and I'm glad that both are kicking in. But I continue to say I'm tired and I have a sore head. Then that can only drain me down. Now I'm feeling excited and motivated to do my best on the scripts I'm currently writing. Oh, wow. I am so happy to hear that, Una. That is brilliant. Cynthia, how do we convince people that affirmations are important and repeating them reach their goals they want? I like the way you've asked that. And really, it's not our responsibility to convince anybody. They've got to practice it. And if they don't see the results, that's fine. But the more we do it for ourselves, we can be an example of how it works. I know that myself. And I used to, in the early part of my career, try to, say to people, please do this. This is amazing. You'll feel brilliant. And they'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever be. But actually, the more I lived my authentic truths, I do what I do, people can see that it works. And it might take them time, Cynthia, to come around to it, or they may not do it at all. And that's okay. We've got to show by example just for ourselves. And if others don't do it, then there's not really much we can do about that. I hope that answers your question. Julie, I just realized we still need to get to our 9 steps, but I think it's very important that we do the foundations. You're welcome, Cynthia. We do the foundations of this. Like, I am happy, I am inspired, I am confident, I am successful, I am amazing. Even if you say that to yourself, I am amazing, you feel the body just moves into a different zone. So remembering that is powerful. Thank you. So we'll move on to actually getting into what our 9 steps are. And I'm going to give the run through here, and then we'll go through them individually. And we're still okay for about another 25 minutes. If anybody has questions, please feel free to put your hand up and ask as we go along, because that's absolutely perfect with me. So the 9 steps to embrace emotional fitness. Why would we even use something like this? Why is this powerful or empowering to us individually as coaches? And why do we want to show up as our best self for our clients? We also, it's a bit like, as Cynthia asked there, we're leading by example, or we're showing that if I'm emotionally fit, then I'm in a position to help others to get there. But if I'm not emotionally fit, it's going to be very hard to be ready for your clients. So the first step is get your story straight. Second step, be the you that you want to be. And our third step is express yourself. Sound a little bit like Madonna when I say that one, express yourself. Step 4 is say yes to you. Step 5, getting off the fence. Step 6, it really is okay to love yourself. And again, this is very much about prioritizing ourselves. Step 7, let your inner GPS guide you. Step 8 is the physical and emotional balance. And then step 9, let it go, let it be. So we'll move on to the first step. Thank you, Julie, for your assistance. I really appreciate it. So when we look at step 1, our story or your story, what is your why? And you can do the full slide, Julie, if that's okay. What is your why? Why are you doing what you do? What brings you to being a coach, if you want to call it that? Or what is it? What is the story you're telling others? You know, as Una said there about changing the mindset and telling ourselves we're tired, we're not going to be able to do something, that could be a story. And our clients have their own stories as well. I'm sure you've experienced with some of your clients that they say certain things repetitively, and we realize that that's the story they're telling themselves. Simple things like, that never works for me, I'm not going to try that, or I've tried it before, it didn't work. The excuses can be often a part of the story. But what is your why? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you do what you do? Why do you get through day to day? What is it that gives you your ultimate why? Because your story is your perception. It's your reality. It's not anybody else's. It's yours. And when you see what your story is, you know, often we say, you know, oh, my story, I gave you my story with an overview of who I was there, but that's not really me, is it? That's just what I do. That's kind of giving you a little bit more of an insight into me. But what's my why? We could be all day talking about that. So understanding our story, your perception of it is your reality. And what are the chapter titles? What is it that you have in different parts of your story? You know, this is me as the coach. This is me as maybe a sister, a daughter, a son, a brother, a husband, whatever it might be. This is me as a friend. This is me on my own. So it's understanding that. And the titles of your chapters could be that job, that part of my career, friendships, how I am in that, things always going this way for me or that way for me. So it's understanding that. And when we are, as we go to the next part of it, thanks, Julie, just as we move to the next slide, think about what your chapters are, because what we think our story is plays a much bigger part than what the actual story is. So it's back to our perception. People will have a perception of us that might not necessarily be the reality, or it's one aspect of us. So when we ask ourselves these questions about our story, about our perception of our story, is your story true? Can it be absolutely, or can you absolutely know that it's true? And how do you react when you believe your story? Or who would you be without your story? You know, we define ourselves by different things, but you can rewrite your story at any stage. You know, every day is a new opportunity to rewrite the story. And you can be your greatest cheerleader or critic. And that's where your choice is. You know, it's like what you think about, you bring about. So back to the PALS pyramid, how you want to feel is determined by your thoughts. So you can be your greatest cheerleader or your toughest critic. Really is just your choice. So it's back to having those choices. So step 2 is being the you that you want to be. And I have there learning to eliminate negative thinking. Life is tough. It's very easy to go to a negative mindset. We see something on the news, we read something, we start a day off feeling fabulous, and then somebody rings us and we might be triggered by something. So it's very easy. And the mind goes to a negative place much easier than it does to a positive place. So when we become consciously aware of changing our thought process and building our emotional fitness on a day-to-day basis, we are consciously looking at changing and eliminating negative thinking. So it becomes things like mind reading or overgeneralizing, generalizing stuff, magnifying or minimizing. No, that's not too bad, I won't deal with it. Or magnifying it, this is a big crisis. And particularly when I work with young adults and teenagers, especially on a one-to-one, these are the parts that are crucial for them, because every simple or what seems like a simple misunderstanding can be hugely impactful for a young person. So it's important to understand that as well. Emotional reasoning, black and white thinking, fortune telling, labeling, should statements, you know, I should have done this or I should have done that, and that would have been this way. But again, it's kind of back to what Sharon said again at the beginning, you know, back to our personal responsibility, how we respond to something and how we take that ownership. So step 2 is a very important part of clearing the decks, removing the negative thinking so that you can begin to build on that more positive thinking with your story. So all of the steps are connected, but they have individual parts to them as well. So step 2, thank you, Julie. When we look at the past, present, and future, and this is an important part to recognize, we often sit in the future or in the past. We're very rarely in the present. Now, if you remember the 3 questions that I was saying, how do I feel right now? How would I like to feel right now? And what do I need right now? That brings us very much into the present. We can't be panicking about the future or worried about the past when we ask those questions. But it's not saying let's avoid the future and let's avoid the past, because being in the present moment, unless we live on a mountain and stay in a lovely meditation and yoga pose 24/7, the present is constantly moving, you know, day-to-day life goes on. But if we can continue to connect with our story, with being the person we want to be in the present, we can create the future from the present. We can create the future from the present. So feeling strong, feeling empowered, feeling positive, feeling happy creates the next feeling of that and keeps the consistency of that going. So the future becomes more and more of that. When we look back at the past from the present, if I feel strong and empowered and positive, and I look back on things that happened in the past that were difficult, I can reflect on them from the present and say, okay, that happened. I don't have to bounce back. Has anybody experienced that, where you bounce back into the past and you immediately feel everything that happened in that experience? You might begin to panic or feel overwhelmed or feel anxious because of something that happened last week, last year, or 10 years ago. When we do that, we're never really moving forward. We're stuck. We're stuck in the past and we're stuck in the fear of the future instead of being in the present. I hope that makes sense. So as we move on, again, looking at your confidence level of being the you that you want to be, no matter what the situation. Our confidence can change. And I'd like you to make a note for yourself. You don't have to share this, but at the moment where you feel your confidence is on a level of 1 to 10, I've highlighted 6 there just to have it on it, but it could be at 2, it could be at 9. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just how you feel, where you feel it is. And our confidence can change as it does. And what I love about confidence is it expands. So as we grow, we can get more and more. And, you know, you might think, oh, wow, I'm a 10 today. And then something happens tomorrow and you go, how do I expand a 10? So for me, I always feel confidence stays in and around, even when it's good and strong, stays in and around the 8 and 9, because we can continually expand that. And in some situations, I might feel a 2, and other situations I feel a 7. So it's just kind of looking at where your confidence is in that. So things like assertiveness, empowerment, confidence, stamina, resilience, your strength, both emotionally and physically, and your focus, they're all part of making you who you are. So again, you can record that, and it's something you might look back on in a few weeks' time and say, has it changed? It may not need to change. Sometimes it can reduce again, but that's, again, how we manage where we are in that moment. Thank you, Julie. So step 3 is expressing yourself. And one of the most powerful ways that I find to express myself, and when I work with students and teenagers, is around gratitude. So I don't know, has anybody used gratitude? Do you use a gratitude journal? Would it be something you'd use daily? Is it something you've heard and that you'd like to use? It's very, very powerful. Sorry, I see it, Irina. Irina has confidence is growing along with experience. Yes, absolutely. You're right. Absolutely. The more experience you get, the more familiar you are with something, the more you step outside your comfort zone, your confidence definitely expands. Una has said, you use it morning and night. Brilliant, Una. Using a gratitude journal has a really powerful way of connecting you with the thoughts. That's lovely. Dawn uses gratitude, 3 things that she's grateful for every night. So I have a format for the gratitude journal that I use. And I found this, I made the connection with this many years ago. I have every gratitude journal I've ever kept. And it's funny to look back on them because you can actually create the life that you want by showing gratitude and appreciation for what you already have. It allows you to attract more and more of that into your life. And the question I ask is, what if you woke up tomorrow with only what you were grateful for today? Now, that's not a way to frighten anybody or go, oh, but it's like, yeah, like simple things. Grateful for the water, electricity, the sunshine, my bed, you know, the simple things. And as we expand that, when you see in the next slide, we have the format that I would use for gratitude journal. And you can use this. I find it very powerful. So I would say every sentence. So it's 10 things I would use every day in my gratitude journal. And people will say to me, how do we think of 10 different things? Or how can there be? It's endless what we can be grateful for. And I've just put a couple of areas there, like home. You could have 100 different things that you're grateful for in your home. So that's 100 days of one thing on your home. Your family, your food, your friends, your employer, your finances, your lessons. They're probably one of the greatest things I'm grateful for. The life lessons I've had, the life experiences that I've had. But the format is, I am so grateful for. So you put in what you're grateful for, but then you write because. And because gives it an intention. So for me, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to connect with you all today because I can share some insight that might help you. Or I'm so grateful for my internet working today because I can connect with you all on Wi-Fi. It doesn't really matter how small or what seems like insignificant or how big it is. We're always showing the same appreciation. So using that format, and you'll notice the first 2 words in that are I am, and how powerful are they? So when we say I am so grateful, we're connecting that, we're making the connection with the realization of appreciation and gratitude. And the one thing, and I don't like saying something doesn't happen. I don't know why. I like to stay in the positive side of things, but it is impossible to be negative in a gratitude journal. So even if there's difficult things happening in your day, you're not going to say, I'm so grateful for having a really awful day. You might say, I'm so grateful for having the opportunity to come home and relax because it was a challenge today, but I'm okay. I've got this. So that's just a little area around the gratitude journal as well. So when we move on to, I think the next step is up for, oh yes, I just wanted to bring a reminder back to the PALS pyramid because that's exactly what we're doing when we use the gratitude journal. We're creating from our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. So when you feel gratitude, it just radiates all that energy that's very positive and very empowering. Thank you, Julie. So step 4 is saying yes to you. And this is probably one of the areas that, particularly with clients, and you may have experienced it yourself with clients, and I want you to put yourself in this situation as well. Saying yes to you, often saying yes to ourselves is something that we're not used to doing, or it's something that we put ourselves at the lower end of the priority list. It's like when everything else is done, depending on what we have responsibilities for, of course, that we might say, you get to a point where you're just too tired to say yes to you. So what is it that you can say yes to you? So when you say yes to yourself, you're prioritizing you. And if you go on to the next slide, please, Julie, it's just bringing that element of, if I say yes, it's almost like saying, if I say no to somebody, by saying yes to me, it's going to generate so much stress or hassle or worried or nearly having fear of saying no, or fear of saying yes to yourself. You know, have you had an opportunity where you know, and we spoke about that at the beginning. And Julie, you were saying that the things that you've said yes to in your life have created more and more connections. You know, going to that event or saying yes to something actually opened up, whether it was personally or professionally. But often we say no because we're afraid, whether it's our confidence is low, or we don't think we're good enough, or we're worried that we might be seen a certain way. So when we look at the FEAR acronym, I don't know if anybody's ever done this one before, but actually what the FEAR stands for. So when we're coming from a place of fear, remember those 50, 60, 70,000 thoughts we were talking about. Fear is just a thought. It's a thought that we have that's fearful, absolutely. And it creates a reality that's fearful, but from a place that we're just thinking of what it could be. So the FEAR, when you're coming from a place of fear, we can go to the next slide, thank you, is really looking at it from false evidence. I think that should be coming up now. Yes, false evidence appearing real. So when we have a fearful thought, I don't know if anybody's seen this acronym before, but it really is just false evidence appearing real. We don't have any evidence that that's what's going to happen. If I do this, this might happen. So we don't do it just in case it might happen, but it might not happen as well, and we haven't taken the chance. Or what if it doesn't work is another thing that we often say. What if it's not a success? What if I fail? Well, what if it's amazing? What if it's really good? What if it's the best decision you've ever made? What if? That's okay, Dawn. Thank you so much for letting me know. You can look at the recording again, I'm sure. Am I on top of everybody there? Yes, thank you. So then how do we change that? And we move it around to the next. So we look at the positive. We can use the acronym for fear as well, but it's not fear this time. So we're using it as feeling excited and ready. And it just changes the energy around what we perceive fear to be, and say, well, actually, physiology in the body is the same. It's just the thoughts that create it as a fearful energy or an excited energy. So let's go with feeling excited and ready. Just wanted to share that with you in case it was something that meant that could help. So by saying yes to other things in your life, you're saying no to. So you might be saying yes to, oh yeah, I'll do that. Or I can't say no, so I'll say yes. But what you're saying no to is something for yourself, maybe. Maybe you'd planned an evening that you wanted to do something on your own, but somebody called you to see if you could do something for them. Now, I'm not here saying don't do anything for anybody or don't help anybody. It's just understanding how we prioritize that. But then by saying yes to yourself, what are you saying no to? So sometimes it's good that we say yes to ourselves. Well, I feel it's always important to say yes to ourselves. And often we might be cut off the hop. Somebody asks us a question and we feel like we have to say yes. You can also say, can I get back to you? Can I have a look at my diary? I just need to see if that will fit into my schedule. And actually, if it does, then yes. But if it doesn't, then no. And it's okay to say no. Thank you, Julie. We'll move on. I think I've gone through that and I'll go to the next one then. And it's just, again, maybe you might like to make a note of something that you're willing to say yes to in your life right now. What would you like to do that's just for you, that you've been putting off, that you said, when something happens, I'll do that, or if I get to this place, I'll do it. Maybe this is what you can do now. So thank you for that. So then we move to step 5, which is getting off the fence. Now, one of the things that happens when you're on the fence is you can get splinters in your backside and they're not very comfortable. So it's like, how do I move off the fence? How do I shift? So again, it's constructing your own freedom. So if we go on to the next slide, it's just about looking at the emotional acceptance that we have around making friends with our emotions. So again, it's about how to get emotionally fit, understanding that emotions are just that, they come in, they're different than our thoughts. They come from our thoughts, of course, but they don't have to determine our actions. They can just be. So whether they're good or bad, they just are. And it's always to understand that change may be fearful at times. We may fear that change is happening, but change can also bring good things. So it's about changing our perception. There's the word, changing our perception of how we see things. How could it be good? And how can we just be. It's like, it is what it is. And I know that expression used to really frustrate me when, particularly, it's probably because my son used to say it all the time, Mom, it is what it is. And I used to think, oh my God, that's just his excuse for not doing what I wanted him to do. But then I realized it is what it is a very powerful statement, because it allows us to accept where we are in that moment. If we want to change it, then we ask ourselves, how do we feel? How would we like to feel? And what do we need? So it's just, it is what it is, and sit with it at times. If you feel sad, you feel sad. If you feel angry, you feel angry. But that too will move. It's like, what can I do to shift that? But if I feel fabulous, if I feel amazing, how can I continue the momentum up for that and do more of what makes me feel good? So thank you. We'll move to the next one then. I'm conscious of time, but we're doing okay. I love this quote. You know, if you don't like something, change it. But if you can't change that, change your attitude. And Maya Angelou is just beautiful soul with some wonderful, wonderful, oh, she's just amazing. So when we change how we think about something, again, this is from Wayne Dyer, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Everything can have a positive spin on it, but I don't mean that to be unrealistic and pretend, you know, switch on the happy channel, everything's okay. Once we know what we're dealing with, we can look at things differently. Thank you, Julie. I'll move on to the next slide. So step 6 is about loving ourselves, and it's a very important part of the emotional fitness journey, and that how we can actually become stronger, more resilient, more empowered, more confident. It's really about putting ourselves first and having that self-love, self-acceptance, self-confidence, self-care, and self-forgiveness. Because that self-forgiveness part can be very much about what we talked about earlier on, the past, present, and the future. When we're connected in the past, we may not have allowed things to go. You know, forgive yourselves. It's a beautiful affirmation from Louise Hay. I forgive you for not being who I wanted you to be. I forgive you and I set you free. Using that for yourself and for others is very, very powerful. But prioritizing yourself, saying yes to you, allows you to show yourself self-care, acceptance, love, and forgiveness. So thank you for that as step 6. And I show love to myself when I take care of myself, when I drink enough water, when I do physical exercise, when I look at my gratitude journal, when I have a bath, when I put some quiet time in just for me, whatever it might be, I show love to myself when. So I'd like you to think about that, and even have that as a takeaway from today. Where would I like to show love to myself more? Thank you, Julie. Step 7 is your inner GPS. And this is the big part of the energy and how energy works with the emotional fitness, because we need energy when we're physically fit. You know, we get more and more energy. Sometimes people would say to me, I feel very tired, but when I went out for my walk, I actually got energy and I felt stronger. The same happens with emotional fitness when we tune in. So your inner GPS is like your intuition, your knowing, your guidance that allows you to connect with the energy. So when you tune into the energy in your body, and that's created by your thoughts, actually, a lot of the time, the positive thoughts create a positive energy that runs through your body, and you feel like doing more of what makes you feel good. So if you look at your intuition, your guidance system, maybe some of you have experienced that, particularly in your role as a coach, because isn't that a powerful part of intuitively listening to your client, knowing what's not being said a lot of the time and tuning into that? That's all energy. That's, as I always remember from the early days of coaching, for me, it's like dancing in the moment. It's feeling it. It's being in there. It's going with a question that you don't know where it came from, but you know that it's going to bring clarity and enlightenment, not just for your client, but also for yourself. So that's our inner GPS. There's also a little bit more to understand about that. Where your energy goes, your energy flows. So your energy life force, where is it today? If you were to say between 1 and 10, 10 being 100%, that's my energy force. It's right up there, B. I'm feeling good. I'm flying high. I'm doing really well. and 1 or 0 being very, very flat. Where would you see your energy life force? For me today, my energy life force is around 9. And I've had a really good morning. I'm going to be doing a talk for parents this evening. So when I bounce out of this presentation, I'll be getting ready to go into that. But I'm doing what I love, so I really am excited about that. So my energy force is high. But I've factored in some quiet time in the morning because I know I'll need to regroup and re-energize myself. Tune into your emotional energy source. What level are you at right now? And you might want to make a note of that. And again, the powerful questions that we talked about earlier on, but finding your frequency. And for me, when I'm on my frequency or in my frequency, it's when I'm doing something that makes me feel good. And there's your 3 questions again. How do I feel right now? How would I like to feel right now? And what do I need right now? And it's all about now. So step 8, physical and emotional balance. How do we balance our physical and emotional energy to bring about the alignment and fitness? Because we need to have them in tune. If you hone in on what makes you happy, you use your attitude of gratitude and you be okay with your emotions, and you start to follow inspired, aligned action, not just motivated. You're inspired to take those aligned actions, creating new words and everything here today. Trust the process. And I know I can't see everybody's face at the moment, but I would love you all to smile. Just take a moment to have a smile now. See how that feels. Is the physiology changing in the body when you smile? Can you feel that connection with the energy and that balance between physical and emotional energy? Thank you, Julie. Your daily habits, as we mentioned, affirmation. You might like to do meditation, positive rituals, me time. Movement is important. Hydration, being present, recharging your energy, both physically and emotionally. Gratitude is a great way to get rid of, to connect to positive energy, but hot penning and writing stuff that is frustrating you is another way that you can do that. Step 9, let it go, let it go. We can all be like Elsa and sing, let it go, let it be, because we hold on to things a lot. So doing an emotional declutter, that's the forgiveness as well, letting it go. Shift the focus. When something is a certain way, let's shift the focus. That will help to shift the energy. And as I said earlier on, it is what it is. Having an open mind and not to be attached to everything. Again, back to it is what it is. And then bringing balance into it. So when we let it go, we let it be. And I think the emotional declutter is a big part of that, letting it go. Thank you, Julie. So before we wrap up, if you check in with how you're feeling right now, and some of you answered in the questions about a shift in the feeling, I think it was Una had said that. How do you feel now? And just write down again, I am feeling. For me, I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling happy. Simple feelings can just create that physiology in the body. So is it different to how you felt earlier on? Let me see, there's some chat coming in there. Arena is feeling calm. Lovely. And is that different to how you felt earlier on? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But again, it's just to recognize that. Thank you, Julie, for being my co-host and helping me with the presentation. I really appreciate that. If anybody has any questions.
This off. It was weird for me being
you.
blind. I couldn't see anybody for the first time, but I'm glad it worked. That was extremely comprehensive. So much information there. And I mean, as you know, I've got a terrible cold, was feeling really down. Now I still have my terrible cold, but I feel very empowered and I feel a lot more aware of how I am creating my own reality. And yes, I am struggling with a cold, but that doesn't mean that I am down or, and I like that. It makes me feel, empowered, I think is the word I'm looking for.
Brilliant. That's excellent. Thank you, Julie. I don't know if there was some
Anybody else have a question?
Cynthia said, thank you very much for a fully packed and informative webinar, but I have to go. Thank you. Thank you. Very useful.
Lots of messages.
Yes, and thank you. You're welcome, everybody. And thank you for, and if anybody has any questions at any stage, they can always just send me an email if they wish or connect with me.
Fantastic.
social media. Thank you.
Well, thank you very, very much on behalf of IAPC&M. And I mean, there's so much
Thank you.
material there. And I'm so grateful that you go to schools as well and do this with young
Thank
people, right? That they learn already that
Yes.
you can choose, you
Yeah,
know, and that
it's
your threats
powerful
are
for them.
not you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So thank
yeah,
you, thank
that's
you.
amazing.
And I hope
you.
you've all made copious notes. And you know, there's to actually, you know, having that little pause, like you were saying, right, where we ask
Yes,
ourselves and choose basically the
yes,
emotions which are going with our thoughts. And I think that's my big takeaway from today. So thank you all
brilliant.
for being here, for
Thank you
investing.
all.
Be you're wonderful. Good luck with everything, and
Thank
see
you.
you all at the next one. Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.